Welcome to Tennessee's at-home learning series for literacy. Today's lesson is all for all our fourth graders out there, though all children are welcome to tune in. This is lesson 6, the first in this week's series. My name is Valencia Smith, and I'm a fourth grade teacher at Venus Stewart Elementary in Gallatin, Tennessee. I'm so excited to be your teacher for this lesson. Welcome to my virtual classroom. Now, if you didn't see our previous lessons, you can find it at www.tn.gov/education. You can still tune in to today's lesson if you haven't seen any of our others. Today, we'll be reading a legend set post, or after the Revolutionary War. Before we get started, to participate fully in our lesson today, you will need 2 pieces of paper, a pencil, surface to write on, the student packet for ELA grade 4 lesson 6, which can be found at www.tn.gov/education. Today, for our lesson focus, we're going to be describing the setting using details from the text, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And for some student practice, you're going to write a paragraph to describe how Kim Griswold uses details to create the setting in The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Now, if you joined me last week, you might remember that we read a collection of Native American stories. While today's story isn't a Native American story, it does start off with a Native American legend about the setting, meaning the author tells a story within the story. Our author is Kim Griswold, and she has rewritten a famous story called The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Unlike the first 5 lessons, which were all different stories, it will take us about 5 days to read this entire story. So you will have time to tune in each day to hear another. Tune in each day to hear another episode. As I said at the beginning, we will be reading a legend set post, or after the Revolutionary War. I bet you've learned a lot about the Revolutionary War this school year. What are some facts you can think of when someone says Revolutionary War? See if you can list at least 4 on your paper. And go. Great. I thought of many of the acts imposed by Great Britain caused the colonists to be angry. It started in 1775. Wow, that's almost 250 years ago. People did not have cars, computers, or televisions in 1775. A war was occurring between the colonists and Great Britain. The colonists were people who left Great Britain, settled in America, and made it their home. The colonists wanted to be separate and form a country, what we call the United States today. Great Britain believed that the Americans should still be part of Great Britain, so the colonists rose up and fought against. Great Britain fought back, causing the Revolutionary War, and after time, the colonists won the war and gained their independence from Great Britain. The story we are reading today is called The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. This story occurs just after the war, and you will see details from the story that help us to recognize this. Here's a legends chart. A legend usually focuses on heroic individuals or fantastic creatures and describes an exciting adventure. It may have some basis in historical fact, something that actually happened, and includes some supernatural events, like ghosts, which today's story does. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is often told as a ghost story. Does anyone know what a supernatural event is? Yes, that's right. A supernatural event has events that are not realistic, such as ghosts. But our goal is to describe the setting based upon the details the author gives us. That's our goal for today. Does anyone remember the term setting? Yes, it has something to do with when and where the story takes place. We also need to remember that the author uses specific details to help us visualize where the story is taking place. Can you remember the time period that this story takes place? That's right, 1775, almost 250 years ago. And where? Yes, in America after the Revolutionary War. Great job, you guys. We will begin with me showing you how to use the words the author uses to think about the setting. Then, there will be a time for you to practice writing on your own with my support. Finally, I will assign you independent work that you can complete after the video ends. This framework will follow the same structure as week 1's lessons. Now, during our reading today, we will capture details about the setting. Go ahead and write setting at the top of one sheet of paper for me, just as I have done here. We will use this as we read through the story. Great, let's begin. As I read, we will stop to think about the setting of the story. And here's our story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Tarrytown nestles in the crook of a cove along the eastern shore of the Hudson River. Just beyond the valley, hidden between high rolling hills, lies a valley so silent it steals the heart of all who enter. Locals call it Sleepy Hollow. Oh wow, don't you love the language? In a matter of 3 sentences, the author provides several details about the setting. How does the author describe the setting? Good. As we talk through the details about the setting, if you don't have all the details we talk about, it's okay. You can write them on your paper so that we can see them, so that we'll have all the same at the end. The first thing I noticed was, that's right, Tarrytown. Do you know what the word tarry means? To tarry means that you stay longer than planned. I also heard we have information about where it is located. The crook of a cove. Let's add that to our chart. Let's break that apart. I know that a crook is like a bend, like the bend in my arm. A cove is a place at the end of a narrow waterway that is an offshoot of a larger body of water. So Tarrytown is at the end of a waterway. I think we can also add eastern shore of Hudson River. So go ahead and write that on your chart as I write it. This would mean it's along the water's edge of a river. At first, I thought Tarrytown was a setting, but then I read just beyond the village, hidden between high rolling hills, lies a valley, silent. So silent it steals the heart of all who enter. This made me realize that the setting is actually a place further than Tarrytown. I'm going to add the word beyond in front of Tarrytown on my chart. I'm also going to add the word valley on my chart. So I know that Sleepy Hollow is past Tarrytown in a valley. What do you think it means that the valley is so silent it steals the heart of all who enters? Good thought. I'm thinking it might be one of 2 things. First, it could mean that it calms someone down when they enter the valley. It is peaceful. Or because this is sometimes a ghost story, known as a ghost story, and I know if someone's heart is still, they would be dead. I wonder if someone's heart is completely still. I'm anxious to find out. In the last sentence, we find out the name of the setting, Sleepy Hollow, as I've written here. At the top of your paper, by the word setting, write Sleepy Hollow. Good. Now in the next paragraph, the author contrasts Sleepy Hollow in the day and night. On your setting sheet, go ahead and write day and night. Listen to the details about Sleepy Hollow in the day and the night as I read. In the day, the hollow sleeps in peace. Quails whistle lullabies, while a brook whispers dreams as it winds between the trees. Sometimes woodpeckers hammer bugs from the bark of birch trees. But those who dare these woods at night are haunted by shadows that flit at the edge of vision. Hoofbeats echo through the hills, and with every step, the pounding beats get closer and closer and closer. Now, boys and girls, I love that first line, sleeps in peace. How does the author describe the day and night in Sleepy Hollow? Good. I noticed that the author uses a lot of descriptions about the sights and sounds. Let's see what she says about the day. For day, I heard sleeps in peace, quails. So let's write that here. Let me move this up. For day, we heard quails whistle. We also heard the brook whispers, and we heard the woodpecker hammering. So let's add that to our chart. Good. Those are the things that we can hear during the day. Now, good authors use contrast to help us see the difference in settings. So now I'm going to write night on the other side. For night, what did you hear? I heard haunted by shadows, hoofbeat echoes. Hoofbeat echoes. I wonder where those came from. So let's write that on our chart. Shadows, and hoofbeat echoes. It makes me think of the sounds of horses when I think of the hoofbeat. Be sure that you are adding these things to your paper as we go. Now let's look a little closer at the line, flint at the edge of vision. What do you think that means? Because I know flint means to move quickly and lightly, I think shadows are just right at the edge of the eyesight, but when someone turns, they're gone. Let's think about how the author changes the mood of the town, or how you feel differently between day and night. I want you to jot down your thoughts on your paper as I read. I felt the mood was peaceful when day was described, but when night was described, it felt haunted and scary. So let's look at your words on your paper for those contrasts. Now we're about to read the native legend. Think about how this legend gives information about the setting. According to the native legends, in the year of the half moon, white men came from faraway land. They called themselves Netherlanders, though others called them Dutch. The natives welcomed them until one-eyed wise man came to the people and delivered a warning. These pale ones will swarm across the hills and valleys like ants. They will burn and chop and build. Soon the land of bear and fox and deer will be no more, and the land will be cursed. The wise men held a powwow at the center of the quiet valley. The people built a great bonfire and drummed and sang through the night. With their music, they enchanted the hollow so that its peace would always remain. What do you think is the meaning of the section, "The pale ones will swarm across the hills and valleys like ants. They will burn and chop and build. Soon the land of bear and fox and deer will be no more, and the land will be cursed." What does it make you think of? I agree. I think it's about settlers moving into the Native Americans' land and killing all the animals and cutting down the trees for houses because it says pale ones, which is referring to the settlers. I think because it's set after the Revolutionary War, it made me connect to the settlers. But boys and girls, we need to think. What of this is important for us to know about the setting? I think it's important that the town was enchanted by Native Americans to protect from a curse. Go ahead and add that to your chart. We're adding, the town was enchanted by the Native Americans to protect from a curse. job. Now let's move on. It says years passed, and the shadow of war or revolution fell across the hills and valleys of the Hudson. The settlers revolted against the British crown, but the wise men's spell was strong. Neither side could capture the Sleepy Hollow beyond Tarrytown, and it became neutral ground. British troops held one side, while revolutionary soldiers held the other. This paragraph finally gives us more of a time frame of the setting because it mentions the Revolutionary War. I'm going to read the section again. See if you can determine the meaning of neutral by the way it is used. But the wise man's spell was strong. Neither side could capture the Sleepy Hollow beyond Tarrytown, and it became neutral ground. British troops held one side, while revolutionary soldiers held the other. So what do you think? Good. Because the text says that the British and revolutionary soldiers each held a side, I think neutral means no one controlled it. I'm going to add neutral during Revolutionary War to my chart. Moving on. One fateful night, battle cries ripped through the countryside. Gunfire peppered the trees. A lone soldier, a Hessian, galloped into the hollow. As he did, the spell made him slow down and then stop. As he turned in his saddle, a cannon blast apart the night. The great iron ball blew the soldier's head from his shoulders. For a moment, peace entered his heart. And in that moment, the enchantment became a curse. It gets really exciting here. Here's another place that I love the language. Can you imagine bullets peppering the trees like you pepper your food? Think for a minute. What killed the soldier? Interestingly, at first, I was thinking the cannonball killed him, but it did not. It was the spell that made him slow down and stop. Because he stopped, the cannonball was able to kill him. How might we add that to the chart? Oh, I agree. I think I'm going to write spell turned to a curse when a cannonball killed a soldier. Let's add that to our chart. We're writing spell turned to a curse when a cannonball killed a soldier. Be sure to add it to your chart if you don't have it, so you can use this information when you do your writing. The soldier's body was buried in the village churchyard, but his head was never found. Legend says the ghost of the headless soldier was doomed to roam the hollow, and that every night since then he has burst from his grave. Every night since then he has galloped on a fiery-eyed stallion searching for the head he lost in battle. How does this legend support us understanding the setting? What did you write down? Good. I like that you added haunted by a headless soldier on a horse every night. Good job. Now, 10 years passed. The soldier's flesh and bones turned to dust, but stories of his haunting grew. Into this haunted hollow came a scarecrow of a man with ears as big as saucers, and a tiny head that bobbled atop a spindly neck. Long arms dangled from his shirt sleeves. When he walked, his baggy clothes flapped as if the strong wind blew around his stick-thin frame. His name was Ichabod Crane. He came to Tarrytown to teach in the one-room schoolhouse that teetered on the edge of Sleepy Hollow. You guessed it, there are more setting details, and we're introduced to our first character, who we will talk about more in the next lesson. What did you write down on your setting paper? Good, I think we need to add a couple of details from this section. First, the Haunting Stories group. So let's add that, Haunting Stories group. So much information, we're running out of room. So let's add that here. I bet you have heard stories from your friends that just keep getting bigger and crazier over time. I think that is what happened in Sleepy Hollow. The soldier story kept getting bigger and crazier over the 10 years. Hey, we have a better idea of when the story is taking place now. Let's see. It is 10 years after the soldier was killed during the Revolutionary War. The war started in 1775, so it has to be at least, that's right, 1785. Because 1775 plus 10 is 1785. And I'm going to add to the chart, post-Revolutionary War, at least 1775. So let's just write that date, at least 1775. I also wanted to add that there was a one-room schoolhouse. The author says that the school teetered on the edge of town. What does that tell you about its location? Let's think. To teeter means to sway back and forth like a teeter-totter or a seesaw. So I think that it means that it was right on the very edge of town. So let's add one-room schoolhouse. Wow, we really have a lot of information about our setting today. Look at all we have learned about the setting. We have thought deeply about how the author is providing us with details about the setting. Now, I want you to prepare to write about what we have captured. We're going to summarize what the author has told us about the setting of Sleepy Hollow so far, using details from the text. We will also start together, and you will finish it on your own after the lesson. Let's look back at our list of setting details. Do you see a way we might organize them? Jot down some ideas in the margins about how they would be grouped. So let me move my paper so we can see everything that we've written. These first few are about the descriptions of Sleepy Hollow location. Falling apart. I'm going to write that in the margin. Draw a line under Sleepy Hollow and write that description in your margin also. This is our location. Then I see that the author moves from contrasting day and night in Sleepy Hollow. So now we're going to write contrast day and night. So let's just write contrast in our margin. And these two. Next, we move to the legend. In the margin, I'm going to write legend next to it. So all of this is about our legend. So here, let's write legend. Finally, we move to 10 years later. I see that we have basically 4 different ways that the author gives us information about the setting. So we have our location, our contrast, our legend, and then here we're going to write 10 years later. To go with that information. This is going to help me as I set up for my paragraph to describe Sleepy Hollow. Now, here's our task. We're going to write a paragraph describing the setting of Sleepy Hollow using details from the story. Think about how the author described the location, contrasts the town's days and nights, uses the legend, and move time forward 10 years. Be sure to include an introduction, details from the text, transition words or phrases, and a conclusion. I know one of the first things I need to do is to write my paragraph is to write an introduction. Take a moment to try to craft an introduction for your paragraph describing Sleepy Hollow. You can say it out loud until you get it how you want it. Now let's see. I've written something. I think I would write it. I think yours should go something like this. Sleepy Hollow is the setting of the story. The legend of Sleepy Hollow. So we have that there. Now we have our introduction written. Let's think about how we can describe Sleepy Hollow from our notes. Our first way was through the details about the location. Try to write the next sentence on your own using your evidence about the location. Great. I wrote, it is located on a river and is described as nestled in the crook of a cove, just beyond the valley and hidden between the high rolling hills. Now, let's look at what we've learned about the differences in the town during the day and night, and include it in the next sentence of your description. Say it out loud, what you might write here using the information from the chart. Good, thank you for sharing. Here's what I came up with. Starting here. Sleepy Hollow is very different in the day and night. In the day, the birds, brook, and wind make peaceful noises, but the noises change at night. Pounding hooves haunt the night. Wow, look at what a great paragraph we have started about Sleepy Hollow. Now it's your turn to write. I want you to take our first sentence and finish the paragraph about the setting in the story by using what we learned and recorded on our chart about the setting from the Native American legend and what we've learned when time moved forward 10 years. Don't forget to think about how you might transition between your descriptions. Also, be sure to include a concluding sentence. I encourage you to get crafty after you write your paragraph. Draw a picture of what Ichabod Crane looks like on today's details. I will show you his picture tomorrow as we learn more about him. Boys and girls, I've enjoyed reading about the setting and the legend of Sleepy Hollow with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me into your home, and I look forward to seeing you in our next lesson in Tennessee's At Home Learning Series. Bye-bye.